Welcome back, everyone, to the Hearthstone Grandmasters for the Americas. Today is May 10th, 2020. Happy Mother's Day to all of the mothers out there and all the families that are together during this time. Very envious. Treasure that time with your precious one. But that's not all, TJ. On May 10th, today in history, back in 1994, is when Nelson Mandela, whose efforts helped end apartheid and, of course, led to his imprisonment for almost, became president of South Africa, and of course became a symbol of a lot of powerful movements moving forward. So of course, a lot to celebrate on this wonderful day for everybody who's a fan of history and of course a fan of moms like me. So taking a look at our first series today, we have Monsanto and Bloodyface, who's going to start things off with a little bit of the same things that we've expected. We have the Warlock Hunter, the Demon Hunter, the Rogue, and the Warrior. And Warriors have been banned nonstop. And we've seen some variations. People have been leaving up Warrior, people have banned Demon Hunter, some people banning Zoo Warlock. But overall, it seems like this is a pretty solid strategy. Monsanto does have a slightly different variation of Zoo. He's playing Zephyrus in his deck.
This is a Zoo Warlock, Dan.
It's pretty interesting, right? Because the idea is that you draw through your deck so consistently that perhaps Zephyrus can activate a handful of times, and if not, sometimes you just play something like a 2-mana 3/2 and try to get some board presence that way.
This is my favorite version of Zoo Warlock right now. He doesn't run the 2-mana Prime, Ebonlock. I always forget its first name. And the Zephyrus inclusion is, I think, just really good. We're seeing a lot of the European players do it, notably like the French players that have brought Zoo, like Zim Belkane, who have been having success with it for a long time. I think they're kind of at the forefront of the Zoo metagame, and this has been my favorite Zoo deck so far. I've talked a lot of smack about Zoo over the past couple days, specifically the ones that run charge minions, but this one from Monsanto I think is the sweet spot for the current metagame. And that doesn't mean that it's guaranteed win. These two decks, Bloodyface and Monsanto, run, very similar lists, almost card for card the same, except for a couple inclusions, like the 2 Wolf Riders for Bloodyface, 2 Shield Bearers for Bloodyface, no Eggs, no Evil Genius. But I think that this deck gives you the most consistency from Monsanto, whereas you have things to do in the early game that isn't just hard dig for Scrap Imp and hope that gets you there. You can do a standard Zoo strategy with Serpent Egg and with Evil Genius, and then look for Scrap Imp turns later. But this hand from Bloodyface is going to be difficult to beat, charge minions or not. He's got double Imprisoned Scrap Imp, he's got Magic Carpet, and as soon as he picks up Expired Merchant, if he does, he is rolling. And so Monsanto here, the strategy for him is going to be get as much power into the board. I don't have Scrap Imp. I don't have a way to discard my Hand of Gul'dan. Try and get as much damage dealt to him before these big Scrap Imp turns come down and before I'm pretty much going to be muscled out of the game. But just looking at these turns early on, it just seems like as long as Bloodyface is able to stabilize even a little bit, he's looking good. Oh, look who it is.
The Wolfie boy. And, we talk about the double Imprisoned Scrap Imp openings and how they have been a double-edged sword. People have felt like while the double Scrap Imp buff is fantastic, if you can get all of your minions in your hand +2/+2 twice, it's a really powerful thing. However, that's actually been the cause of people losing for being too greedy. ETC yesterday highlighted what happens when you focus a little bit too much on the +2/+2 and you don't actually have enough board presence to fight back early. That being said, is it a little bit ironic to me, TJ, that the double Scrap in play perhaps is best used against Zoo itself, because they do take a little bit of time to get built up. When you compare it to Hunter, who's just so fast onto the board, it's tough to try and fight back when you're trying to life tap and take damage through Flame In.
Yeah, and honestly, Bloodyface's hand didn't really have anything to do other than play double Scrap Imp, unless you wanted to play a Voidwalker. But this This is not a negligible amount of damage from Monsanto's side. These Fiendish Servants represent more than just 2-1s on the board because they can trade and get the buffs on the other side. But bloodyface just has so much to fight back. Woodwalkers now have 3/5 taunt, which lines up really well against this board. As soon as Magic Carpet can come down, which looks like it's going to come down right now because Monsanto doesn't have great answers for it, it's looking good. And
yeah,
Monsanto he's just playing minions, right? It's not it can't really stand up to Magic Carpet plus double Imprisoned Scrap Imp, and no way to discard Hand of Gul'dan. This is going to be a tough game, and Monsanto has to make the decision right now. If he trades in this Magic Carpet, he risks a lot of things. He risks just another Magic Carpet coming down. He gives up his board almost entirely, which means that bloodyface gets a full turn of development. Oh, that's a good target. Woo!
Yeah, that's actually ideal for a lot of things. There's a lot of ways that Monsanto could approach this trading turn. He could have traded off the Guardian Og Merchant first, so that way he could guarantee that it would land on another Fiendish Servant, and then the Fiendish Servant would transfer it ultimately to the Divine Shield minion. He still can. If he trades, for example, the Og Merchant into the Scrap Imp, and then the Fiendish Servant into it as well, then the Battle Mage will inherit that 2 damage. And Monsanto picks up his own Scrap Imp.
We'll see if it ends up being too late.
Right. So one thing that I actually really appreciate of what bloodyface just did was he didn't get greedy with Magic Carpet. I think a lot of people look at Magic Carpet and think, I need to get all the value. My deck is 18 1-drops. Let me just hold on to this Magic Carpet. But bloodyface, because he has double Scrap Imp buffs, he's just going to be so far ahead in tempo compared to his opponent. If he just goes Wolf Rider to the face here...
Oh, I finally hit face, Dan! It's the first time!
Monsanto answer this?
It's the first time that's ever happened!
That's right. Never happened in the history of Hearthstone prior to this moment. Wolf Rider has hit face.
Ooh, Soulfire.
But it's just a little bit off.
Yeah.
He has no taunts. And he's staring at a potential lethal damage right here.
Yeah, honestly, he has to unload the Soulfire or he's very likely dead. And he has to hit the Hand of Gul'dan to even have a chance, I think. Let's see it. Nope.
Yeah, it was unlikely, and Monsanto does concede. Bloodyface gets the Game 1 victory. And the Wolf Rider ended up putting on a good amount of pressure, but outside of the double Scrap Imp, I would say that the play of the game there was bloodyface's Magic Carpet on 3, and I think that is counterintuitive to what people want to use that card for. In hindsight, it looks kind of obvious, but it's an easier decision to look at as opposed to play because you see 8 power on board. Your Magic Carpet is often touted as one of the most important cards after you buff your hand. And you're just going to throw it out there. So it's an unusual line, and I like it, and it panned out really well. So good spot by bloodyface. And that's the kind of plays that I think make Zoo Warlock a little bit trickier than people anticipated. They just think, oh, Scrap Imp, discard Hand of Gul'dan, and then you win. But there's more to it that can really help you squeeze out those percentage points.
Yeah, and he realized that if Monsanto trades his whole board into the Magic Carpet, he just gets to play a 5/7 forward walker on the next turn, which no matter what he drew from that point, it didn't really matter because he had a 5/7/5 on board. So Monsanto, even if he discards Hand of Gul'dan there, unless he hits a lot of taunt minions from the draw, he's still probably going to lose that game. And Zoo Mirror, no matter if you're playing charge minions or not, it just sometimes it does come down to those things. It's hard to play a zoo hand, just a normal zoo hand without the Imprisoned Scrap Imp versus one that does have Imprisoned Scrap Imp because you just don't get onto the board quick enough with your minions to come back, especially since you lack the significant comeback mechanics, with the only exception being Magic Carpet. So bloodyface takes a big win with Zoo. Because, like I said, that deck has been struggling, and we'll get to see game number 2 here. bloodyface on the Demon Hunter, and Monsanto Going to be playing the Rogue. Monsanto is playing a secret Galakron Rogue, the normal Galakron, not the Highlander version. And bloodyface, as you can see from the opening hands here, has the Raging Fell Screamer Priestess of Fury curve. So he has them both in hand, and against Rogue, you very often have time to get that down. I wonder if this is just going to be maybe not a 4 keep from him. Okay, he's going to throw him away. He's going to value the early tempo more.
Yeah, I think early tempo is just becoming super duper important for Rogue. And, you know, this is like the 7th time today after watching Grandmasters for a while. Today in particular seems to be emphasizing Pharaoh Cat into a 2 drop. And I feel like when this happens, Rogue's win rate skyrockets. I have to imagine that this might be one of the best possible starts for Rogue. Specifically, Pharaoh Cat into like a sturdy Reborn 2-drop like Shotbot. How do you answer that if you're the Demon Hunter? It's like playing... I mean, people compare Shotbot a lot to the shielded mini-bot back from the day. And in this situation, it feels very similar.
Yeah, it is. Kind of has the almost a Divine Shield effect. And now bloodyface already is behind. It's only turn 2. Now he does have... He threw away Raging Fell Screamer Priestess of Fury, but then in his mulligan got back the Fell Screamer, and then on his second draw gets the Priestess of Fury. So he has access to that regardless.
Now he also could go for Raging Fell Screamer into Tempo 8 Satyr Overseer, but I have to imagine Priestess of Fury is in the forefront of his mind considering how powerful that card is.
Yeah.
But Monsanto is going to get the board here pretty convincingly.
Yeah, and Dirty Tricks picked up with bloodyface being on the coin and has not used it yet. So the Praise Galakron trade over and then set up Dirty Tricks actually makes that bloodyface does not want to use his coin, but he's playing a tempo deck, so it's hard to hold on to that for a while or else he's going to fall behind. So the Dirty Tricks, I think, is actually a surprisingly good pickup here for what it can do in the current situation of the game. It's very likely to get him 2 draws in the near future, and his deck is kind of, or his hand is kind of fizzling out with plays to make on the following turns.
Yeah, and I think Monsanto really weighing how he wants to approach this Battle Fiend. He could trade the shot button, have maximum power on the board, but he's a little bit flimsy to several things. You know, his opponent could pick the board off very easily with one attack hits through the hero power or through things like a Twin Slice. In this scenario, bloodyface testing for secrets, first seeing no ambush.
Yeah.
Now the follow-up test could be the Twin Slices to test for dirty secrets. But it's also a little bit tenuous, right? Because what if this was also a bamboozle? Would you be committed to going for the second slice? So bloodyface is thinking about those possibilities, but now that he sees the secrets have been activated, I think in his mind, he might as well just commit to the second slice here.
Yep. He knows the Satyr Overseer is going to die, but he's got the curve to follow this up. He's got Raging Fell Screamer and that into Priestess of Fury. So...
Okay, well, the Draconic Lackey could pick up a cheap dragon to play. There's not that many available to Rogue. Rogue is one of the classes that did not inherit a cheap dragon.
So many options.
On their side. It was primarily given to the classes of which the League of Explorers were able to grace their presence upon for the Scented Dragons. In this case, Rogue... I mean, they do have cards like Waxadread, but not going to do much. So from Monsanto's perspective, how does his next few turns really look here?
Well, he has Shield of Galakron, probably in a Crocs to pick up Galakrons and invoke twice. So this turn he kind of just has to play stuff, and Fairy Dragon is a cheap dragon. That along with Brightwing are really the only options. But Fairy Dragon just gets traded over by the 2/2, so he might as well play an ambush. which could end up messing with Bloodyface's turn, but Bloodyface still has a good answer to this. He plays Raging Fell Screamer, sees that it's ambush, can coin out the hero power, trade over the ambush token, still have a 4/4 on board, and still have enough mana next turn to play the Priestess of Fury. So, yeah, Monsanto's got to find some big stuff quick.
Yeah, this was a really impactful moment here, considering that Monsanto still can't capitalize off the Lackey through a High Spirit Dogwoggle. And the Fell Screamer into Priestess Fury is one of the more powerful two-card combinations that Demon Hunter can really put together here.
I will act as your scale.
And so, Monsanto, crossing his fingers, hoping for no Priestess of Fury, but understands that it's very likely he has it. And a Blackjack Stunner coming to the hand after 2 secrets being utilized, that's gotta be painful.
Yeah, no.
However, Flick Sky Shiv on curve here is very good.
And he's got a very big Edwin in the works coming for next turn. He's got Shadow Step, a bunch of cheap stuff, and then an Edwin Van Cleave. Like, that's pretty ideal, if you ask me. Cobalt Lackey can deal with almost anything in the Demon Hunter deck now that he's already seen 1 Priest of Fury and 1 Raging Fell Screamer. It's like Gladebound, Adept, Kane are the only things that he doesn't answer with that. So even though Bloodyface seemed to have a pretty powerful answer to the early curve from Monsanto, just the fact that Monsanto was able to not take damage, not fall behind on board, ended up being huge here because he was able to stabilize on life, still being at 26, and still have an answer to Priestess of Fury, and can really go big onto the board next turn. This is looking pretty good.
And Bloodyface does have some mana inefficiencies this turn if he chooses to play his Sightless Watcher, so Metamorphosis is the most efficient use of his mana. And the question becomes, do you clear the board or do you just start going for face? And I don't think he's anywhere close to killing his opponent. Even if you count the optimal damage going face with Metamorphosis over 2 turns, your opponent's still at 15, and you have a way to generate 2 damage from hand right now. Guess 3, because you do have a card that's being drawn, and that's not going to be enough. So Bloodyface has to be conservative until he's able to find cards like Skull Gul'dan or Spectrosite to pull him back in.
Oh yeah, time to giddy up.
Yeah, this is a pretty cool use of the Cobalt Lackey just to be aggressive. You don't really often see that, but given the fact that there's Edwin Van Cleef in hand, this is going to be a big daddy. 12-12?
And that does set up for sort of a soft 2-turn lethal.
Yeah, Bloodyface does have Altruist to counter these 2 smaller minions, and they can Sightless Watcher to prepare for the next turn, and also has Eye Beam available for 1 mana at that point.
What must be done?
That being said, still a scary situation here.
Ooh.
I feel like Crimson Cinder Runner has to be something to be considered here, considering how Eye Beam wouldn't be enough.
Well, if you choose Eye Beam, that's really the only chance you have to answer Edwin, because you're dealing the 3 damage to it right now, so you can Metamorphosis Eye Beam next turn to kill it. If you pick Crimson Cinder Runner, the Edwin probably just lives, unless the Cinder Runner draws into Eye Beam anyway. And if that's your out, then you might as well just take the Eye Beam to begin with. Because if Monsanto clears the stuff on board here, which you're assuming, you want to be able to have an answer to it, so that you don't get 2-turned.
So many options.
Yes, that is fair. If you assume that your minions are going to die, which I think is a good step of preparation for Bloodyface, you do have the Metamorphosis hero power, but you can't rely on Altruist and Spectral Watcher to be alive. And I misspoke earlier. There is no Spectral Sight in Bloodyface's deck, so his outs really do just become his one of Skull Gul'dan in his Demon Hunter deck for card draw resources. Otherwise, he's just going to be playing 1 and 2 mana cards for the rest of the game. You know, alternatively, he could just rip the Princess of Fury off the top of his deck after he gets his I-Beam. And interestingly enough, because bloodyface kept his Spectral Watcher, or Sightless Watcher on the board, and he does have I-Beam picked up, huh.
It's awkward. There's only one Bamboozle in Monsanto's deck, but he's played an Ambush and a Dirty Trick so far, so it's 50-50 between the second Ambush and Bamboozle. But if you trade into it and it lives, you'd have to develop that resource anyway. But I think reducing a 12/7 is better. So I think, yeah, just attacking is better, because even if it's not Bamboozle, if it's Ambush, you still get to just Metamorphose it down, I-Beam something else to take it off the board. So it seems like first point of action for bloodyface. I mean, I would have said it would have been attack into. He's not playing a mini this turn anyway. Okay. Oh, yep.
Oh boy. Well, he will clear off all of these minions. Oh wow, bloodyface rushes a little bit, took an extra damage. I believe if he wanted to trade into the taunt minion, he should have used his own phase, because the 3/2 would have died regardless.
Yeah.
And not that it feels like it matters much, since bloodyface can't even stop what's going on right now. So being at 3 versus 4 life here, not going to make the biggest differences. Bloodyface is going to look to see what's the next card in his deck, and that's not enough. So game 2 goes to Monsanto, the Rogue, able to beat the Demon Hunter, which makes sense to me. It feels like Rogue's best matchups are Demon Hunter and the Mirror so far. That's not a good sign, because it is 50-50, maybe slightly favored, maybe slightly unfavored versus Demon Hunter, but it is supposedly dead even against the other Rogues. So getting a win there was pretty huge for Monsanto.
I feel like we're in an opposite day right now, where Charju is winning and Rogue is winning, and the other decks are losing. It's kind of a weird situation that we're finding ourselves in today, because this has been the exact opposite of what's been happening over the past 2 days. But I don't mind it. I don't mind it. We're starting to see, you know, the power level of these decks, and Monsanto being able to control the board early was pretty key. Answering the Priestess of Fury without having taken too much damage or giving up too much to bloodyface on the side ends up being the key there. But now Monsanto turns to his Demon Hunter. A little bit different. It does have the Frozen Shadow Weaver. It's got the faster curve with no Raging Fell Screamers and no Priestess of Fury. On paper, this deck should be favored in the Demon Hunter Mirror matchup, just because it has more consistent early game, and Frozen Shadow Weaver is a heck of a card to shut down many plays that Demon Hunter wants to do, notably the Glaive-bound Adept and War Glaives of Azeroth. But no matter when it comes down, it can often make tempo plays hard for Demon Hunters, because a lot of their tempo tools rely on attacking, right? Twin Slice differs from Backstab in that you need to be able to attack with your hero. Monsanto's also on the play, which means he gets to play his 1-drop and force bloodyface to be the one to react to it. But having double Chaos Strike is probably not the best follow-up, because it's such a one-dimensional card. It doesn't allow you the flexibility of like trading into smaller things. So
yeah, flexibility is the name of the game for a lot of these tempo decks, because you need to be able to adapt to a bunch of scenarios, whether it's removing or pushing damage, or even keeping up the resources at an efficient cost. And, you know, this is not efficient. You got Chaos Strike dealing 2 damage and drawing a card. But Monsanto does have Frozen Shadow Weaver, which seems to be one of the more important cards in the mirror.
yeah. But it's not a great play on curve, and that's the problem. I mean, it's better than nothing here. It does shut off Satyr Overseer from coming down on 3, but bloodyface still has a very reasonable place. Oh, especially with Crimson Sigil Runner, he gets to go Sigil Runner, I-Beam. Have a nice wide board and be able to follow that up with Satyr Overseer, throw in his 1-up Skull Gul'dan on top to reload once it's all said and done.
Yeah, Monsanto, of course, slow blink, recognizing this game feels already like it's losing. He's losing his grasp on it. He doesn't have any card draw. He has pure tempo tools. Well, I guess he does have Chaos Strike, but I mean, he doesn't really have ways to deal with this wide board without Altruists. No one's playing Immolation Rs into Tempo Demon Hunters. They're just trying to get ahead through pure minion. And Monsanto doesn't have a way to answer everything without giving up other things in other categories. So in this case, if you want to go for Satyr Overseer they just drew, Hero powering down a Crimson Sigil Runner will just kind of leave him to be traded onto the board. That might be something he has to do anyways. And then he has to consider, bloodyface still hasn't even used a coin yet. So if he's not careful, he still might just walk straight into a Gladebound of Death and then be back exactly where he started, but worse.
Yeah, I mean, not even if he's not careful, it's just he has no choice, whether he's careful or not. It seems like he's going to get blown out of the game here in the next few turns.
Oh, wow. The prophecy, TJ. Raging Fell Screamer into Satyr Overseer.
That's good.
Oh, I see his weakness.
Bloodyface can use that second slice just to get the efficient kill, and that way he can keep an extra minion on board. Might not seem like much, but every little bit matters in these matches where you squeeze out a little bit of board presence. Monsanto with 2 cards that are increasingly more difficult to play with Frenzied Fellwing. When you're trading with so many minions, you're not going to be able to get these Frenzied Fellwings out for very cheap. And the way he can do it is to Chaos Strike and go aggressive with his opponent's life total, and then play the double Frenzy Fellwing. Oh, 1 card off from being able to potentially swing back the board. And if I'm Monsanto, I'm already thinking about game number 4, because this is a tough spot to be in.
Yeah,
I grow impatient.
you can try and set up for a power play next turn with Warglaves, Hero Power, last attack goes face, double Frenzied Fellwing. In which case, trading over Satyr Overseer and freezing the probably face, but Fell Screamer is also a viable target. Face because you don't want a Warglaves Vazanoth to come down. But, like, does he just lose anyway if Warglaves Vazanoth is there? That's, like, the big question.
Is it cold in the shadows?
He's going to take so much damage, though. I mean, next turn he may not even be able to reliably play Warglaves and trade off minions because he might have taken too much damage at that point. But because he froze face, this ends up being a pretty dead turn for bloodyface overall. He does get to develop, but he doesn't get to go crazy with a ton of face damage plus development. He doesn't get to attack, for instance, with the Umberwing to deal a little bit more and spawn the Satyr Overseer token.
Alas, poor Warlock.
Okay. I mean,
Yikes. Not going to really be able to do much here. Spectral Sight not going to have any impact given that he has 0 mana left this turn and he's staring at essentially game-ending damage. So Monsanto, it's like he is out of game 3, which puts him down to his last life for this series.
For now.
And Monsanto's already down 0-1 in the standings. Having a 0-2 week is very unlike Monsanto, to be honest. He has done very well in the first 2 seasons of Grandmasters in 2019. He was, like, once again, an underrated player. I think players like, bloodyface stole the spotlight a little bit more. Or perhaps you can look at PNC making it to the BlizzCon stage, also making a surprise run. But Monsanto was, again, rock solid in those standings. being a threat to every single week that he brought different lineups, and it seems like he's struggling a little bit this week.
Yeah, definitely is. And sort of at the end of the game there, he could have tried to clean things up with the Warglaze of Azzinoth and get the Frenzied Felwing down, but that play likely doesn't win him the game. Whereas if he skulls and picks up a cheap Altruist plus some fodder for it and an I-beam, he can I-beam and then clean up with Altruist and maybe swing from there. So it might look like a weak play, but when you're desperate like that, you just have to find anything to the one outer, right? The one thing that'll get you back in the game. And it looked like he saw a specific line that probably involved Altruist and I-beam and didn't hit it, which means that actually he doesn't even play I-beam. Excuse me. He's playing the variation of the list that we saw Hunter-Ace also play this week, and there's been a lot of players saying that deck is favored in the mirror matchup, but you can see just how powerful I-beam is because of the tempo swings, and Hunter-Ace also had a very poor week in Europe Grandmasters, so this deck overall, even though it has the Shadow Weavers and the consistent early game, it's been struggling. And he's going to switch to the Zoo Warlock now to try and put another win on the board, bring this to a game number 5, and bloodyface is going to be playing the Rogue.
Yeah, it's tough. These are some quick matchups that's been going through our first series here. And Monsanto, it felt like the games that he did lose, there wasn't much that he could do to stop it because he's playing a tempo-based matchup and he fell behind really early. Bloodyface had the double Scrap Imp in the Zoo Mirror. You're not going to beat that when you draw your first Scrap Imp really late, and bloodyface has the ammo to back it up. Sometimes your opponents whiff when they have double Scrap Imp because they're holding Skull, Goldane, and Soulfire, but that wasn't really the case here for bloodyface. And then in tempo Demon Hunter Mirror, it seemed like Monsanto had a explosive hand, but he never really got a chance to play it. I mean, dying with 2 Frenzy Felwings in hand, it's got to feel pretty awful, considering how consistent the deck can put out damage, but Monsanto had to address the board state. So if we go to Rogue versus Zoo, and once more we're introduced with Zoo with a little bit too slow of a start, and Rogue able to get those tempo tools out, we might see a repeat of it. However, this is looking already better for Monsanto than it did for him the previous games. He has a curve. This Beaming Sidekick is very nice to use with the Evil Genius.
Yeah. Got a free damage to bloodyface, which ended up being nice. 2 free damage, actually. I mean, I guess he just wouldn't have staggered it up, but bloodyface follows it up with Seal Fate. Monsanto's really looking for that Scrap Imp now. Most likely just going to play the Nightshade Matron here since he needs to start getting the ball rolling. There is the opportunity, though, going into turn 4. If he suspects a weak turn from bloodyface, he can go for sort of a Zoo hand with Battle Mage, Voidwalker plus Fiendish Servant, but it just seems like he needs Magic Carpet or Scrap Imp to really get this hand rolling. So,
yeah, I like this play a lot. Ooh, finds the Scrap Imp and the Zephyrus. Bloodyface gonna try and look for an opportunity to respond with a spell discovered. There's not as many spells for Rogue to utilize off of to be able to answer this. But, Sap, I'm looking at Sap being one of them. I'm looking at Secrets potentially being another. Okay, finds Fan of Knives, which is not that great against Zoo right now, to be honest. They do have 1 health minions in the form of lackeys or in the Fiendish Servants. When they buff their hand, it's not going to be particularly impressive.
This time amuses me.
okay. Oh, okay.
Right, so I don't think there's any dragons in the deck for Monsanto. Chronobreaker not going to be applicable, but Monsanto still has a sturdy board. The purpose of that evolve was just to keep his minion healthy.
Yeah. And I like that Monsanto not really getting greedy here with his Scrap Imp. A lot of players in that situation would see Scrap Imp in hand and being played on the board and just tap and try and get as greedy as possible with the card. Make sure you get as much buff as possible. But especially with how Monsanto's constructed his deck and the fact that he doesn't have Magic Carpet. If he falls behind on board before his Scrap Imp activates, then basically the buffs don't mean anything because Bloodyface will have initiative and maybe even be able to react to it. So I like the fact that he's making sure that he's still focusing on board while also getting setting up for huge Scrap Imp value. Okay. I wouldn't be opposed to dumping the second Nightshade Mage in here because Expired Merchant or Zephrys going away is not the biggest deal. At this point, it seems like he's looking to end the game before Zephrys would be active. And since he's already drawn enough card, Expired Merchant would kind of be redundant. So he's looking to make this a big push. Next turn, his Scrap Imp will activate. He'll unload onto the board once more. And that will be essentially his game-ending push.
Yep. Bloodyface stuck with a slow mid-range hand that we've seen a lot of rogues struggle with. They have all these invocations. They have Galakrond in hand. Biggest problem is that Bloodyface has a bunch of combo tools. You know, he's got Blackjack starters with those secrets. He's got Hearthstone Grandmasters with no lackey on.
Yeah. Well, it is a fully invoked Galakrond now, right on curve. So it's something. It's just he'll need to find tools to fight back, and unless it's exactly Kronk's picked up from Galakrond, he doesn't really have things that will help him fight back. He won't be able to play Secret plus Blackjack Center. Face's Corruptor might be able to do something, but that's if Monsanto doesn't trade down the board. He needs a lot of help from the Galakrond next turn, but he has set it up so that he's getting fully invoked on turn 7.
Right.
Kronk's would be huge, and he would have 20 cards left in deck, assuming he doesn't pick it up. Right. So it'd basically be a 1 in 5, a 20% outer to make sure that he clears the board. And Monsanto knows the Galakrond is fully invoked. He knows that Bloodyface has been playing towards that. But honestly, there's not really a way that he can play around it. Everything that he has is just lower than 5 health.
It's a Hail Mary attempt for Bloodyface, but there's reasonable chances he can at least answer some of this.
Yeah.
You mentioned Kronk's Flick could be a possibility, especially if he commits the second Voidwalker. And I think it's wise for that reason. I think Monsanto rather reduce the chances of that happening. That's actually a good draw for Bloodyface to not draw the Praise Galakrond here, but he is going to overdraw 1 card. That's another thing we have to kind of talk about, is that his hand size is a little bit too big.
Yep, so he has 3 opportunities here.
Flick.
I have too many cards.
That's actually really good. He can face his Corruptor and Flick to take a good chunk of power off the board.
Right. Flick on the Voidwalker also has surprising amount of impact here, but Bloodyface probably going to target... Actually, what would you target with this Flick? An interesting question to think about.
The highest health thing, the Chrono Breaker, or whatever gets buffed by the Fiendish Servant.
Right. Like, what if instead you target the Scrap Imp?
At this point, I don't think Bloodyface has time to go for something like that. He just wants to take as much power off board.
Yeah, it's true. That 5 health is annoying.
It would be 2 full turns, and he's either won the game at that point or lost the game at that point.
Right.
And that's if Scrap Imp is even in the next couple draws.
And Bloodyface needs to hold on to this ambush because he's going to Blackjack Stunner twice. That was a big turn, and Monsanto doesn't have the game-ending damage. He's got 8, and his opponent's at 16. So he's still a ways away, and the tempo's about to start swinging pretty dramatically towards the rogue side, because Monsanto, if he gets his minions returned to hand by the Blackjack Stunner, that's really efficient removal for Bloodyface, while he has 6 other mana crystals to develop behind it.
Yeah.
Not to mention that I believe he's used most of the buffs, if not all of it, for the Scrap Imp.
So many possibilities.
He has the Expired Merchant left. I think, it's a 4-3.
Why do you
So this is effectively Monsanto's all in. He does have ways to reload, but it's gonna be harder.
Yeah. And he has taken quite a bit of damage as well. Though bloodyface will be on trade duty for some time here. He'll have to make sure that he trades enough off the board so that Soulfire isn't an out for Monsanto. We might even be looking at some type of double Soulfire play for Monsanto that would be an out.
Yeah.
Which is a scary situation to be in if you're the Zoo Warlock, because it oftentimes doesn't line up super well. He has expensive fodder in his deck, or in his hand, to be able to have things to maybe discard the second one, but he also is very limited on turns. Because bloodyface is going to load up the board quite extensively here and have the 5 damage weapon.
Backstab. That is huge. Again, that allows him to take off just a little bit more power on the board. And now the Fan of Knives is a full clear. And now Monsanto, I don't think he was optimistic on being able to stick much, but that Titanic Lackey. Jeez. Now Monsanto needs to draw Skull Gul'dan. Does not get it. Taps. Finds nothing. The magic carpet here is not going to be useful enough, and Rogue is going to be able to win this game, TJ. Monsanto does have desperation plays. Yeah, he does have desperation plays, but it feels very likely that bloodyface is going to be able to find something next turn.
Yeah. Problem with Magic Carpet here is that it really doesn't do anything. And honestly, if he plays a minion, the ambush token will spawn, and that'll add more power to the board. So,
but he's got to play something. Can't not play anything.
Yeah.
You fell right into my.
And to add insult to injury, Monsanto playing things has made his opponent's board stronger, and also his minions that cost 1 have been increased, so he can't even capitalize on the magic carpet.
Well, bloodyface has many outs for lethal here. Eviscerate's still left in his deck, and Kronks as well. So,
that was surprisingly really poor.
Okay, so if bloodyface trades into some of these, he's gonna leave a tap open for Monsanto. So technically, there is an out for lethal. It has to be Soulfire off the top into tap Soulfire, and the first Soulfire has to not discard the other.
It would be quite the runner. Another opportunity is... Well, he does have the expired merchant to hand a Gul'dan. But that's going to do it. Bloodyface wins 3-1 and starts off his Grandmasters first week of the round robin stage with a 2-0 record. And Monsanto, heart goes out to him. He kind of tweeted the other day that he's been prepping excessively. He actually puts 2 full work weeks worth of hours. He says he prepped 80 hours going into this first weekend, and that stings, Try your hardest and you don't succeed. That happens in Grandmasters. But at the same time, gotta say that the Rogue looked a lot better today in some of those tempo-based matchups. But at the same time, if you're able to generate things like Backstab and Fan of Knives and help it be the board swinging tempo that you need, that's a recipe for success for a lot of Rogue decks.
Yeah, Monsanto got a feel for him. Honestly, I liked his decks overall better. Just in the current America's metagame as a whole, I felt like his decks were better positioned, and they've shown to be having more success in the region over the past few days. And I would have considered him a favorite going into the series because of those things, but sometimes it just doesn't line up that way. And bloodyface, obviously something's working because he went 2-0 this week. So, yeah, what do I know, I guess?
Well, I know that the next series is going to look somewhat similar. We have Saiyan versus Eddie. Now, taking a look at Eddie's lineup